But this was like, so 2011, so this is over 10 years after I left. But so it had changed a lot. It was like changed a ton. It wasn't like when I first lived there, it was super slow. There were like, you would see like donkey carts pulling, things on the street. There was just taxis and donkey carts and bicyclists, like hardly any private cars. And I go back, and at 2011, you have like Ferraris, Mercedes-Benz, Porsches, BMWs. It's crazy. It's like, yeah, like Prada, like Gucci, everybody. Like, it was just the whole. This was like the booming times of China. It was before Xi Jinping. It was like just everything goes. Everything goes.
Welcome in to Menfolk Journeys, the podcast of great conversations with men. I'm your host, Chris Foster, and we're going to explore how we wear this beautiful and confusing mantle of manhood in the 21st century. Look, I get it. In public life, a lot of men are knuckleheads. But in private life, we can be thoughtful and we can be reflective if we have the right conversation, if we feel comfortable talking about our story. And we all have a great story to tell. And we can all learn from those stories. We can learn about who we've been, who we are, and who we want to be. And that's why we're going to have this conversation, so we can learn from other men just like us. And in this episode, we're going to talk with my friend Simon. Simon's life and career have taken him from San Diego to San Francisco to New York to Beijing to New York to San Francisco and San Diego and back again. It's a fantastic story of how his life has unfolded. You're going to love it. Welcome in to Menfolk Journeys. Well, okay, Simon Dang, welcome in.
Thank you, Chris. Great to be here. So my name's Simon. I'm 54. I'm married with 2 kids. I grew up in San Diego, and I live in San Diego still. Or I should say I came back to San Diego. And I run a marketing consulting agency.
Great. You are one of the blessed people to actually be born in San Diego, and it's very hard to leave San Diego once you're here. I know a lot of transplants, myself being one of them. It's an interesting thing, though, to be an adult in the city that you were a kid in. I don't know what that's like. Do you think sometimes about the places you went as a child, and do you have childhood memories of San Diego and can look at them differently with an adult perspective?
Yeah, all the time. It's very interesting to have grown up here and then re-experiencing it as an adult. So I'll give you an example. So I remember I don't know if you ever gone down to PB. This famous ice cream shop called Mr. Frosty's. Mm-hmm. And I used to go there all the time. My parents used to take us there. And then when I was a little older, I used to, ride my bike down there and stuff. And now I take my kids there, and it's like, it's a whole nother experience, but it's cool because it's almost exactly the same. I mean, I don't even think they've raised their prices really. It's great service. People hang out. It's a local place. So things like that. I mean, just that, and just driving around the parks, the bay. I mean, obviously a lot of things have changed over the years as well, but some things haven't, which is great.
Yeah, it's interesting. You have a perspective of what you experienced as a kid, and then getting the opportunity to raise your own kids and doing some of those same exact events, right? The same experiences. That's really special to be able to kind of pass those things down.
Yeah, definitely.
So you had mentioned that you came back to San Diego. Where were you, and what did you do?
Yeah, so this might be the entire podcast right here. But I don't want to make it like a life story either, but I'll kind of give you the shortened version. So grew up in San Diego. Mostly in PB. And then after high school, back then I'm 54. So back then, San Diego wasn't like the most desirable place to come and live and stuff. It was just like a very sleepy, kind of like chill town. It wasn't like the resort kind of town like it is today.
Mm-hmm.
So after graduation, I was just like, I got accepted to college in the Bay Area in Berkeley, and I was like, okay, cool, I'm out of here. This is it. I'm like leaving, and so had a fantastic time in college. I ended up actually staying for an extra year up there, and then with no intention to move back to San Diego. There's just like there wasn't work or anything. I mean, come home during summer breaks and stuff, but that was it. And yeah,
I want to pause real quick. I think that's really interesting as a young man moving to a new place with no intention of coming back. It's kind of like you closed the door on that part of yourself and wanted to move ahead.
yeah, I think mostly it's because it was like I said, like back in the day, San Diego wasn't like a big town. It wasn't like a desirable place to go. It was still I mean, it was great weather and everything, but it was just like kind of a sleepy, chill place, surfer town or whatever. There wasn't a whole lot going on. And so all my friends as well had the same idea. They're just like, okay,
Mm.
we got into schools in the East Coast or whatever, and we're just gonna continue. After school, we're just gonna work wherever. Um, so yeah, that was kind of the plan. Um, if I had only known that San Diego would morph into what it is today, maybe it would have been smarter to stay and buy like a house that was like super cheap back then. It
Right.
was crazy. I have to tell you, Chris, like, so in this, I'm living in the same neighborhood I grew up in. So I'm actually like
Wow.
renting a house that my parents own, which is like 4 or 5 minutes away from where I grew up. Right.
Huh.
And so this house or this neighborhood, right, in Pacific Beach, like I went to elementary school here locally,
Hmm.
and all of my I can't maybe not all, but like a lot of my teachers were living in PB in like the hills, like right on like Pacifica and whatever,
Mm-hmm.
um, with a teacher's salary, right? And
Right.
this is like,
Right. That's what you want, right? You want the neighborhood to
yeah, it should
be
be like that, right? It should
livable.
be like that. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
like multi-million dollar. I mean, a house across the street was selling for like $4.5 million or something.
Oh.
It's outrageous. So, yeah, I mean, so I don't know. So maybe the smart move would have been to stay. But anyway, so
but it's kind of funny though, Simon,
yeah,
because when I look back on decisions that you make or you don't make, how do you know what's smart or what's dumb?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's kind of like I mean, maybe sometimes you would think that your life would be different, but you wouldn't have had the life you had if you stayed.
yeah. That is definitely the case, and I keep telling myself that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So you went to Berkeley, and then with your intention of not coming back to San Diego, where did you go?
So I ended up. It was really easy. I ended up just across the bay in San Francisco. I was kind of like a pre-med student, but I didn't my grades were not the best. I was It was tough. It was rough. Being a pre-med at Berkeley back then was like
Mm,
really tough. Um so I tried, I kept trying, applying, whatever. And then I ended up working in biotech um out in the Bay Area, like Genentech and UCSF and stuff like that. And yeah, we found an apartment with my college friends. Found an apartment downtown San Francisco. The rent was like, I don't know, it was crazy. It was like $1,200 for four of us. A
hmm.
flat, which was like right on Pine and Powell, like downtown financial district.
Wow.
It was just like, yeah, I think my rent, it came out to like $320 or something a month or something. So,
Hmm.
um, pretty affordable. Had a fantastic time, um, working working in that area. And then I eventually, I guess like the .com era started, and I always had kind of like a technical, like I loved like computers and stuff like that. I mean, I probably, looking back, I probably should just kind of stayed with that passion. But anyways, I got into IT and tech back then. Um, and so I did some work then, and then I mean, I think that, okay, if there's going to be a theme for tonight, I think it's like I have like career ADHD because
Oh,
I'm gonna talk, I'm gonna go through maybe like four different career changes
yeah.
in my
You know,
life.
it's interesting because if you look up Simon Dang on LinkedIn, you
Yeah.
have 15. It says 15 other experiences, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I mean,
And
dude, if I didn't read out my resume, it'd probably be like 5 pages long or something, because
yeah,
it's just
but it's funny. You call it career ADHD or call it, curiosity, right?
yeah.
Call it multidimensional interests. Call it the bravery to pursue different areas. So, yeah, we've got. I mean, that's an interesting theme, Simon. So please carry
Yeah.
on. What happened?
Yeah, so I went through a bunch of different things. So I was like, was trying to get into med school. So I was working in biotech because that was my major was in. So I had a dual major. I had a major in genetics and also art history. And so
That's
so,
awesome.
so I was working at doing like research, biotech research. And then I was just like, I don't want to be a doctor. I mean, this is not gonna happen. So I gotta do something else. And for a period, I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just go to grad school for art history. So I like quit my job, and then I quit my job and I studied for the GMAT, or not GMAT, sorry, the GRE. And then I got accepted into like I think it was Brown or something like that. And then I was like, okay, cool. And then I was like, do I really want to do that? I mean, I could have gone. I mean, I think I even had a scholarship or whatever. And I was just like, and then I was like, I don't know, this .com thing is pretty cool. Like, I'm gonna miss out. Like, screw it. I'm gonna go into tech. So I like taught myself tech. And when one of my roommates was working in kind of like tech, so he's like, oh yeah, just do this. You got to take these Microsoft classes or whatever. I was like, oh yeah, I can do that. It's easy. So I kind of taught myself, and then I got back into the job market doing tech. And then I had a couple friends out on the East Coast in New York, so I'd go out and visit them a bunch of times. And I was like, oh, this is a cool city. This is where it's at. And so I decided to move to New York. Um, yeah, and so I continued doing tech out there for a while. Um, this is during .com, and then of course the .com bubble happened. I think like spring of 2001, if I remember right. And then I got laid off on like the Friday before 9/11.
Oh, wow.
And then 9/11 happened. I think 9/11 was on a Tuesday, if I remember correctly. And
Wow.
so like the job market was just like
And you were in the
gone.
city when 9/11 happened.
I was actually this is crazy. So I was actually in Queens at my girlfriend's place, and I was going home. Um, I was taking the train, and like it was like the N train, I believe. Anyways, I had to transfer, and so I'm on the platform, and I see one of the towers already burning,
On
and I'm
TV?
like, no, I could see it
Live?
from the platform, yeah, because it's
Oh
in the
my
morning.
gosh.
And I was like, "Oh, that doesn't look right," but it's a World Trade Center. It's gonna be fine. It's like the most advanced building. Like it's gonna be fine. And so then I'm like, okay. And then but then the operator's like, okay, well, all service has been stopped to New York or whatever. So I was like, oh wait, no, I didn't have work, so I was like going home.
That's right.
So yeah, so I was going home, and I also lived in a different part of Queens. So I was just like, okay, so I took a different train. I got home, and I was just like, maybe a block away from my house, my apartment, and one of my friends called me from California. He's like, "Dude, are you okay? Like, what? Do you know what's going on?" Like, he's like, "What?" I was like, "What?" It's like the World Trade Center. I'm like, "Yeah, but I just saw it. It's fine." He's like, "No, dude, they're
Oh my
gone."
God.
Like, what? Are you
Oh my
crazy?
God.
I just saw it. One of them was burning, but I didn't see the other. The other one was fine. And then by the time I got home, it's like I turned the news on. I was like, "Oh my god, it was just a crazy day." So yeah, so that happened, and so it was just super depressing living there and without work, and just
Yeah,
yeah, it's just a whole
that's
nother
such
time.
not just, I mean, the devastation and the loss is incalculable. So I can't,
Yeah, I mean,
speak
I
to that
have, I mean,
enough.
I know a couple people that were in the building when it happened. I
Mm.
assume they didn't make it. I know like four people that worked on the upper levels,
Oh,
and miraculously, like my recruiter, she worked on the 103rd floor, and she was away on vacation that week.
oh my gosh.
Calling her, I was like, "You okay?" And she's like, "Yeah." And then another friend of mine who worked there, like, I don't know, she's like arrived to work late or something
You know,
crazy. There's
so,
so many stories about
so
that.
many stories
Yeah,
about that,
so
and
many stories.
but also too there's this psychological damage and emotional damage that happens after the event for the
Yeah,
whole city. And your story of not having a job and being laid off and in the city after that is one story that's kind of a microcosm slash macrocosm of kind of the psychic toll it takes on everybody in that city, especially, right? And just
yeah.
reverberates out.
Oh, yeah.
That's so. How did you process that, Simon?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I still get kind of emotional just thinking about it. I mean, it was just like, you know, I wasn't working, so I was like, I got to do something. And um, I remember I went into the city. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna volunteer. Oh, I think the first day I was like, okay, I'm gonna see if I can donate blood or something. So I went to one of the hospitals, and there was like a line, like 4 or 5 blocks long, um, of people trying to give blood.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting out there, just like with other kids, like other students or whatever, people out of work or whoever. And we're all just like, we want to help, we want to do
Mm.
something. And yeah, as you know, there there wasn't really a need, unfortunately,
But
for
but I love that that is a that's such a human response to something like that, because the question is, what can I do?
yeah,
How
yeah.
can I
Everyone
help?
wanted to do something,
Hmm.
so that's the first thing we thought about. We just go to the hospital, see if we can like help to donate blood or something. That didn't turn out, and then I went and I found this volunteer thing on the east side, and it was just like helping stock, supply. Like people are donating stuff, left and right. Like there was like
Hmm.
all the CVS and all the pharmacies were donating all kinds of stuff, and people are donating food, whatever. So I was working at this place where we're just organizing things. We put all the water here, put all the bandages here, put all the snacks here, whatever. There were like some really famous chefs. I remember that were they put a barge together, and Chef Daniel, that was his name. And he made a barge, and he like cooked all this like gourmet food, and they took the boat down to like lower Manhattan to like feed the firemen or
Right.
whoever. Yeah, all
Right.
the first responders. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I remember that. Yeah.
That's a good moment where people come together, and in a time of crisis, in a time of tragedy, finding the humanity and the common good, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting for you where your experiences that you've had from a career take you to these life experiences. Like, it's
Mhm.
because of a career pursuit that you have these indelible moments of a whole life that's beyond career.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, yeah, whenever, a lot of times when I meet, New Yorkers, like we talk about, it's just like something you can talk about. It's like,
Hmm.
where were you that day? Whatever. Yeah. so yeah, that was a rough winter, and then so at that so I okay, so I had already changed careers again, by the way. So I went to New York as a like tech IT tech, and then I went into becoming a programmer coder. And so my last job was I was a coder, and then couldn't find work doing any of that stuff. I was just interviewing, just trying, and then at that time I was just like, I was like, you know what, I'm not going to find work for a while, and it's just kind of like depressing here. And um, my girlfriend at the time, she moved to France, and she was like studying abroad, like yeah, she's studying French, and so I was like, okay, maybe I can just join her. And I applied to like this cooking school out in Paris, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll do that. And I got in. I got in again. I got in, and then I was just like, you know what? Do I want to? I mean, do I really want to go out there? I mean, learning French would be cool, but I really want to learn Chinese. I think that's like something I've always wanted to do.
That's awesome.
And this is like,
One of your great skills is applying for schools and getting into everywhere
I
you
know,
apply.
man. It's just like, I know. It's just like, what am I doing? I think I've taken almost every like graduate level exam except for the one for law school. I haven't
Except
taken
for
that
the
one yet.
LSAT. That's
I haven't taken the
hilarious.
LSAT, but I've taken the MCAT, the GMAT, the GRE. I've taken this one for pharmacy school. I don't know. Anyway, um, so so I got into that, and I was like, you know what, should I go? I don't know. And then I was just like, you know what, I've always wanted to learn Chinese. I just like growing up. So growing up, my parents are from China, and during that period when they left China, they just like, we're out of here. We're never going back. Like, this is just like,
Mm-hmm.
they left China. So you're here now, and you're in the US, like you're going to learn English, and that's good enough. Like, whatever. So, I mean, they tried to, not saying they didn't try. I mean, I'm not blaming them. It's like, it was also me. Like, I kind of rebelled. I didn't want to go to Chinese school and stuff when I was a kid,
Sure.
whatever. Then later on, I was just like, you know what, this is like, I think it's important. I just to learn my culture, and to like, I have this time, and I think it's like super cheap to live there. So I'm gonna apply to this like language school in Beijing, and it was like, it was kind of weird. It was like this it was very I remember everything had to be like, there was no digital application. It was all paper and stuff. So we
Mm-hmm.
had to send it all the way out there, and then they could send it all the way back, and then you get all this stuff. And so yeah, I got in, and then finally I left the next year, like in springtime. So now, so I'm out of work. I'm just like a student now, in Beijing, but you know what, Chris? I mean, I think I had one of the best times of my life during that period. It was just like
Huh.
unbelievable. It was really cool. It was really eye opening. I
And
learned a ton.
you know what's interesting though, with
Yeah.
just those two experiences of applying to art history, no, I want to go tech.
Hmm.
Applying to France and cooking, no, I want to go to China. It's like you have to make a decision and then realize that that's not the decision you want, but you have to make that decision first and realize the opportunity was open for you. And even though the
Yeah.
opportunity was open, good. Now I know that I don't want to do that, but I had to know that that was open. Just kind of
Yeah.
getting it out of your system.
That is true. I don't look back. I don't look back and say, oh,
Mm-hmm.
um, I had stayed and did that. But although I do remember one thing that was kind of interesting. So the .com company that went under, like a lot of the other my coworkers, um, I mean, a lot of people got laid off, and a lot of them ended up going to Google. And
Interesting.
I remember one of them was like, "Hey, do you want to like work here?" And I'm like, maybe. I mean, no, I saw her after I got accepted. I saw her, and she kind of mentioned it. I'm like, maybe. I don't know. This is like 2002, so it was
Mm.
like pre-IPO and everything. So there's that. I mean, maybe that would have been a good smart move. But anyways,
You'll never
can't
know.
look back. Can't look back on that.
Right.
Um, yeah. So I went off. Went to China. Had a great time. Met some really amazing people. Some people I still know today. Um, and it was a fun time. Learned a ton. My Chinese was getting pretty good. I mean, it's not. I mean, I'm not fluent or anything, but it was pretty good at that time. I got pretty confident actually. It's pretty
Good.
amazing. Based on, I just remember like I only took like maybe 2 semesters out there, and then I decided I wanted to try to work and just kind of like took classes on the side and just learn on my own.
Now, did your parents speak Chinese at all in the house? Is there this
They spoke,
passive memory?
yeah, they spoke. They didn't speak Mandarin. They spoke Cantonese, which
Okay.
so it's a little bit different, similar but not really.
Hmm.
So, um,
Did you feel like when you were in Beijing, even though your parents were of Chinese and Chinese family and ancestry and the like, did you feel like you were just really American and outside of it? And were they welcoming to you coming in?
yeah, that's a really interesting question. So, so I've gotten two different types of responses. One of them is like, "Oh yeah, you're not a foreigner. You're one of us." Like even when I tell them like I was born in America and they can tell from my accent and everything, they're like, "That's okay. You're still one of us or whatever." Sometimes I get that from the locals, and the other response is like, "Where are you from? Like you look Chinese, but your Chinese is horrible." And like, "What are you?" You know, like, they can't figure me out. And so so yeah, that was interesting. And yeah, so then I would have ended up staying in China probably as long as I could because I wanted to stay there and just, like, work and whatever. But then SARS happened. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh
So
yeah, for
SARS
sure.
happened,
Yeah,
and Beijing was an epicenter. And so my parents were like, "Just get out of there. Just get out." And,
interesting.
some of my friends actually ended up staying, but I left, went back to San Diego without work, and, I'm
So
like,
how
"Okay."
long were you in China total?
So at that time, only, like, maybe, like, a year and a half, 2 years.
Oh, because then you went back.
Oh, I went back again, yeah. Yeah, I
Uh
went back
huh.
again. So then, yeah, I went to San Diego and, was just doing some odd jobs, doing some, like, digital marketing. I met one of my friends, and we were, like, doing sales and stuff, doing, like, telemarketing and sales, and that was a lot of fun. Um, just doing odd jobs and whatever, but I was starting getting kinda depressed because I was like, "Come on, I'm getting older, and
Hmm.
I don't even have a career here. Here I am jumping
Yeah.
around, doing all these things, living with my parents. I gotta do something."
Right.
Um,
That makes
and
sense though,
yeah.
especially for young men. I don't know, maybe that's not, maybe it's for young women too, but I can sense and feel for young men in their early kind of that mid 20s or even late 20s where if they're not settled in a
Mhm,
path, some people are okay with that, but most I've talked to aren't, where they start getting a little bit nervous and worried that there isn't a career to build on
mhm,
per se. Was
yeah.
that the anxiety that you were feeling at the time?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my friends were getting married or, advancing in their careers, and, I was like, "Am I," and I'm, like, kinda living in and out of my parents' place. Like, I got an apartment, but then I moved back or whatever and all this stuff. And I was just like, "I gotta do something. I don't know what." I was just gonna we gotta figure something out. Um, had some I had some, I guess one bright spot was, like, one of my friends I met, at one of these odd jobs was we were doing telemarketing and stuff, and so he and I and another guy from that same company started, like, a small agency, just like a small like SEO agency.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing pretty good. Like those guys were sales, I was doing the tech stuff. And like we were actually doing pretty good. And we made the one mistake I think we made was that like I didn't scale it. Like now looking back, I know exactly what I should have done.
Mm-hmm.
It was just me. I was only doing all the tech stuff. They were doing the sales. They couldn't help me with the tech stuff. And so I was the bottleneck, and we was just like, and I was doing this on the side. Like I had a full-time job, so I was doing it on the side. So it was like it was just juggling
Ah,
too many things.
right.
And eventually the partners were like, dude, we gotta like I don't know. Everyone just kind of lost. We just kind of burnt out basically. But
Yeah.
what I should have done, I should have hired and just expanded, but I didn't. I didn't think about that.
You know what though? I mean, from an outsider looking at the past of your life that I never knew, I can see though that, a lot of entrepreneurs don't have a business experience or background. Some do, some don't. And
Yeah.
so they don't know what to practically do to move from founding to entrepreneurship to actual scaling CEO, like the process, the methodology, like,
Yeah. That's
and
right.
so it's very hard, I think, for you at that time, especially if it was part-time, to say, you're right. I don't know what I don't know. I don't know that I should scale. And then if I do know, what does that mean and how do I do it? And my hunch is that you didn't have a mentor, you didn't have anyone that you could work through or talk about so they could coach you on how to do the thing that you didn't know how to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly it. So I didn't. Yeah. But it did really, and it's related to what I'm doing right now. It really kind of like opened my whole mind or whatever to entrepreneurship, and I loved it. I was
Hmm.
like, you know what, this is really cool. Like I want to run my own business. I like just having a taste of it was really cool,
Yeah.
even though it wasn't super in the end. It wasn't super successful. We ended up selling it or whatever, but but it was like just having that taste of like, okay, I'm running the shop and we're making money and we could see this thing growing, and it was taking a life of its own and everything. It was a lot of fun, even though it was, we spent a lot of time on it, but it was fun. um and then so then I ended up going to corporate. So I got a job at Microsoft and I moved back to New York again for the second time. This is like a endless cycle, man. It's like these three cities or four cities, like the Bay Area, New York, San Diego, and Beijing are like, that's it. That's in my life.
It's like these magnets that
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
it is
Yeah.
funny where you these magnets of your life that kind of move you around. And the story that you're telling to me, Simon, is it's like the stages of your life. Like you go to these different cities to write certain chapters that'll go through certain stages of your life, and that stage and that transition only happens in those cities.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. It's really weird. So I mean, I had an option. I could have worked in Redmond, but I decided no, I wanted to work in New York. So I worked in New York, and this is like I worked in corporate. It's kind of learned the whole like how to work in a company structure, how to
Mm-hmm.
like be a man. I became a manager, how to manage people. So really cool. I had an amazing time there. Great company, amazing people, smart people, people I still have career connections with today. Um, some of my best friends still, from those times. It was a wonderful time, and then eventually, just corporate. They decided to like change the company direction, and so our department got folded into something else, and they're like, okay, we're gonna have to like pretty much pare down this company or whatever, this whole um, department. So I was trying to look for work within Microsoft, just kind of stay. Um, during that time I went to business school, Columbia. So working part time.
By the way, getting an
Yeah,
MBA.
took the GMAT, took the GMAT, another professional, whatever. And no, because at this time I was in. Okay, this is funny. So I was at Microsoft, and I got hired, and I still had this idea that I want to go back to China. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm in New York. I started this new job. I love it. But then there was like this, I just happened to like, I was walking around and I met this woman she was from New Zealand. She was just like, I don't know, I was just talking, and she's like, "Hey, we're, and I was just like, what do you do?" And she's like, "Yeah, I just do this thing where I visit new offices or whatever." And then so I just kept in contact with her. And then later on, she introduced me to someone else who was like going to China to do this like search engine strategies, to like present at search engine strategies. And I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. Like,
Right.
I want to go there. And so somehow my awesome manager somehow pulled some strings or whatever and got me to like be the presenter at this like at this at this thing at this conference in China. And it was Google, this guy from Google was speaking, I was speaking, and then Jack Ma was the third speaker. Who's
Jack Ma, as in
Yeah,
Jack Ma, Jack Ma.
yeah, Jack Ma. And, and back then he was already like pretty way up there, but that was pretty cool. I was like on stage with Jack Ma.
That's crazy. That's amazing.
um,
And it's so interesting where you don't know where these connections lead, but I think it gets back to the core of who you are, Simon, where you are so interested in so many things that you say yes.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes, yeah, to my detriment or whatever. But yeah, just try. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I wanted to. So okay, so I wanted to go there, and of course, I was like networking with like the Microsoft China people. Like, hey, can I get a
Mm-hmm.
job out here? Because I want to move out here. But my Chinese wasn't that great, so I was like, I don't know if we have a place for you. Um, so I went back to New York, and then so I was working, and then eventually they had to like let go of our department,
Mm.
and so I ended up working at another agency at this agency. So I kind of learned the agency life, and then still with the intention of going back to China because I had graduated from business school already, and so I was like, I got to get back there. I got to get back there, and finally, a friend of my friends showed me this LinkedIn job posting, and boom, I applied for it, got the job, and uh, moved back to Beijing. This was
Wow.
2011.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, so back to the city again. But this was like 2011. So this is over 10 years after I left. But so it had changed a lot. It was
Yeah, I
like
bet.
changed a ton. It wasn't like when I first lived there, it was super slow. There were like you would see like donkey carts pulling,
Really?
things on the street. There was just taxis and donkey carts and bicyclists, like hardly any private cars. And I go
Wow.
back, and at 2011, you have like Ferraris, Mercedes Benz, Porsches,
That's just in a
BMWs.
generation, right? That's so interesting as an outsider seeing that shock in
It's
one generation,
insane.
a dramatic change
It's
like that.
crazy. It's like, yeah, like Prada, like Gucci, everywhere. Like, it was just the whole. This was like the booming times of China. It
Mm,
was before Xi Jinping. It was like just everything's like everything goes. Everything goes.
right. We'll be right back. It's funny because it's almost like it was a magnet, right, of bringing people in, and then
Hmm.
folks who are interested just get inexorably drawn into this gravity well, right? The people who
Hmm.
want to go there get pulled in, so everyone gets pulled in. So suddenly the change is accelerated even faster.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was an interesting time, and so I
What did
yeah.
you do? What did you do for work?
So for work, I worked at an agency called Weber Shandwick. It's a PR agency, and I was brought in to help them with their digital program. but it was kind of there's some politics involved. Like the guy who hired me kind of put me into this position to kind of help him. But then the guy who's actually running digital in the Beijing office caught wind of it, and who's like didn't want to work with me, and so like great, now I'm just starting here. But then it was cool because they had other things they needed, and eventually they needed someone to do sales. And it's like, I was like, I'll do that. I know how to
Sure.
sell. It's fine. It's cool. I can do that. And so I got moved into new business. I was doing new business for a while. So yeah, that was professionally. That was going on. I proposed to well, I guess my fiance, wife, girlfriend at the time, and then before we moved to China, and then she came over because coincidentally she was actually working for Chinese NGO. So
Oh,
it's
that's
perfect. So
interesting.
it's perfect.
Right.
So she was
Yeah.
traveling to China anyways all the time. And then so
Mm-hmm.
when I got out there, like we both could work there together. So it was perfect. Um so we ended up getting married. And so here I was we were living there, um and we're married, and we were living in this like really nice place, and both making pretty good money, no kids.
Right.
It was a fun time. It was a lot of fun. It's definitely a good time. We had a lot of her friends were living there. A lot of my friends were moving there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And you
yeah,
said though that earlier that it was kind of like a Wild West time, like an almost an environment where you could do anything. So in that environment where you, as Simon, someone who wants to do everything, in an environment where you can do anything,
yeah,
what did you end up choosing? Where did you end up going, and what did you make the most of that experience with?
yeah. So it was, yeah, it was. I had a great time. So I was doing sales, but also doing like some strategy for a lot of clients. And then I started meeting all these like founders who came out to China to like, they want to launch in China, and and I mean we helped a lot of like the big companies. Like we helped Ocean Spray launch in China. We helped a
Hmm.
bunch of like, all these different companies launch in China. And so that was a lot of fun doing that stuff. But then also like I met all these like smaller entrepreneurs and stuff. And then I started rethinking about that time when I had my own company, and I was like, oh, this would be cool. Like I had a good time doing that. So the itch came back again.
I was going to say the itch came
I
back.
know, because I mean, yeah, like career wise, professionally, I mean, the money was great. I mean,
Uh-huh.
and living there, like low living expenses and everything is like, you can't complain. I mean, it was awesome. Except for maybe the pollution was really bad.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so then I think I told you this story when we were having beers a couple weeks ago. So, so my wife and I, we moved to the center of the city in a historic area. And then one of her friends was also living in the area, and there's not much going on there at night
Which
in
is
terms of like,
odd because it's the center of the
I
city.
know, but it's like more like historic. So there's
Okay.
not a lot going on. So like the party places was like, you'd have to you know, take a 15, 20-minute cab ride away or whatever. So we're like, yeah, we should just open a bar, let's whatever. It's just like, this is why do we have to go all the way across town to drink when we could just, whatever. It was just, we were all bored a little bit. And so another friend of ours ran a bar, and so he's like, yeah, I'll help you guys out. So three of us became partners, and we opened up a um a baiju bar. So a baiju is a Chinese spirit that you can't really classify it as anything. It's not like a gin or a vodka or a whiskey or anything. It's a whole nother. It's a clear liquid, but it doesn't taste like any Western spirit at all.
Hmm.
And it's also not just monolithic. There's different types. There's like some that are very light, some that are very strong, some that are
What's it
very
made from? Is it
sweet.
what's the source of it?
So some of them are made from rice, some of them are made from sorghum wheat,
Okay.
mixtures of that as well. And the fermentation process is like totally different from anything Western. So you get these funky flavors too. So it's pretty interesting. So anyway, so it's kind of a drink. It's kind of a spirit that a lot of people kind of dismiss. Westerners kind of dismiss anyway. It's because it's like too strong or really hard to drink. But traditionally, you're supposed to just have it by itself with a meal. Um, and one of my partners, he was really good at bartending. He was like, "No, we can use this we can use this in drinks." He started coming up with a bunch of cocktails. And so we opened up a Baiju bar, which in itself was a brilliant idea because number one, it's totally out of place of how
Mm.
you would normally enjoy that type of spirit. Um, and so people are like, "What are you like?" For I'm talking for like foreigners and locals. They
Hmm.
both are like, does not make any sense.
It's
And
brand
then
new and different.
yeah, and plus there's no food either. And so people would come and this was in the middle of this hutong, like small alleyway. Uh yeah, it's cool. It's in a historic area. It's like actually I think there was a plaque across the alleyway from our bar. It said this alley has been around since like the 1500s or something like that. It was pretty interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, so we renovated this place. I think it was like I don't know, it was like my landlord's contact or something, and I think there was a rumor that it used to be a brothel, and so
Perfect.
they cleaned it up, and then we just converted it into a bar. Did a really good job. Like one of the partners, his girlfriend was an architect, so she helped out and designed and stuff. So everything came together, and we opened it up, and it was like we had this like huge, massive opening party, and it just like spread like wildfire. Like it was just
And this is
everyone was
before
coming.
social media, right? This is just people talking about this place.
Yes, yeah. And then I was like kind of using my PR skills to kind of like pitch some
Hmm.
journalists, and I knew a lot of the journalists anyway, so it's super easy. All the foreign journalists, they would come over and drink. It'd be easy, it's super easy. And then like
Uh-huh.
CNN came and like BBC and ABC and every single met like would come up and interview us. Um, And so that was taking a life of its own. It was pretty fun. I even and even like my boss at the agency was like, "Dude, are you gotta like kind of tone it down, man? Are you like you gotta I know you're working well at this agency, but like I can't like I don't want you to be like if you're gonna be doing your bar stuff, like you gotta
Right.
do it outside of hours, you know, like it was
Right.
like getting ready, like the word was spreading. Um so yeah, we had a good time there. It was fun. It was just like a new thing to do.
That's
Um,
fantastic.
yeah,
What a
yeah,
marvelous experience. Again, it's like these career and entrepreneurial opportunities give you life experiences that kind of shape you, right?
mhm,
And you know, as someone who's interested in a lot of different things, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different people, right? You have, I think, you know, this journey kind of is a vehicle to satisfy your curiosity about all
yeah,
the experiences you could have. It's
yeah,
really interesting.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was a really fantastic time. And um, then we had our first kid in China. Um,
Oh, that changes things.
in 2015. Yeah, that's history. Yeah, you know how that is. You know how that is.
I do, right?
Yeah.
That's that's interesting. A friend of mine was in working construction, and now he's got a quote unquote corporate job because they're
Hmm.
expecting, and the idea of your own personal pursuits. I wouldn't say they stop completely, but they
Hmm.
definitely have guardrails on them,
Yeah.
right? As soon as kids happen, like the guardrails come on, and you know the I won't say your freedom goes away, but the why you make choices, the way you make choices go away. Like the
Mhm.
why you make choices is now different.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it's true.
interesting.
It's true. Yeah, so I was having some concerns about, you know, the health because like
Mm-hmm.
you
You
never
said
know,
pollution.
you
You
never
said
know what.
pollution was really
Yeah, the
bad, and
pollution was crazy. Like I'm sure you remember seeing the news or maybe you didn't, I don't
yeah.
know. But it was all over the place and then the pollution and you never know about like the quality of the food and like we had this like I remember I would go whenever I visited home in the US, I would order these water testing kits and I'd bring them back and I would see like levels of whatever, like metals and stuff in our water. And then so we ordered this like reverse osmosis filtration system so we could have good water. I mean, you could order like people would just order delivery water, right? Like those 5-gallon jugs and stuff.
Right, right,
But
right.
even that, I tested the water and it was just like no, it was not acceptable. So you had to do these things to like
Hmm.
get yourself like back to normal. So we had like water filtration systems, we had like air filters to keep you have like air pollution monitors in your
Mm-hmm.
house, all these things to just like make it normal. And I remember it was like after my son was born, my mother-in-law visited from Germany. My wife's German, and so she came and she's used to like being outdoors all the time in
Sure.
Germany, right? Like they live on like a big like in the country, And so we're in this like luxury apartment, but then like the air is so bad that like we didn't want to go outside for the sake of the baby. And so we're just holed up there. Like I think we had like 2 days where the air was okay, you know.
And she looks at you
And
and
so
she says, "Oh my God, you
out of the
guys are
month. And
out of
so
the
she was
month,
going
2 days."
crazy,
Yeah, and she's looking at
maybe
you
2
like
or
you're
3
you're
days.
crazy to live
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, she was going crazy, so I remember, she needed to, like, get exercise, so she ended up going up and down the staircase in the building to get
Shut the
exercise.
front door. So
It was
you
just
really,
like
it was the pollution was so bad you could only go out a couple days a
yeah, because
month.
this was, like so my son was born late October, so, like, in the fall, typically, it gets really bad,
Mm.
because it's just, like, people are burning coal and stuff just for warmth and whatever. So, it's
And
just yeah, it's just it was
that's a
bad.
lifestyle that we have no concept of in the States, right?
Mhm.
Beijing, the city is so massive. I have
Yeah,
no idea how
yeah.
many millions of people live there. Um, but also
Yeah.
too,
I mean, I have to say
you
right now I have to say I think it's yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that whenever you're a new parent, I think most new parents have these immediate reflections of their own childhood and what their parents were like. What did my parents do, right? How did they raise me? And comparing and contrasting. Um, and I'm sure that you were like, no, this is not how I was raised. I was raised in San Diego. I was outside all the time. We were
Oh,
running
yeah,
around all the
that's right.
time. I'm in Pacific Beach riding my bike. I can go surfing. This is not what I envisioned for my kids as they
Mhm.
start to grow up, right? Was that part of the calculus?
That was part of it, yeah, that was definitely part of it, and I was just like, "I don't know." But then at the same time, I mean, there's pros and cons, right? Because like, we're making great money, we could put him into a great school, he's gonna be, like, super fluent, and, like, and it was easy to, like, travel, like, we could go to Thailand for the weekend if we wanted to, like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, it was pretty easy. So we had a great lifestyle, but then at the same time, like, okay, there's a lot of pollution. We don't know what the long-term effects are going to be. Um, and then I had this, and so then maybe this was kind of the tipping point, which I don't know. Well, anyways, well, yeah, maybe this was kind of the decision factor. So the bar was going so well that it caught the attention of a lot of the producers of baijiu in China, and they're like, "What are you guys doing that you're able to draw this new audience into drinking the spirit? It's usually just for Chinese, and you're getting like all kinds of foreign nationals drinking this stuff, enjoying it, whatever. Maybe you guys are onto something. And so one of my partners, he super fluent in Chinese, amazing, fluent in Chinese. And so he was kind of like the negotiator. And so somehow he like negotiated this deal where they would invest and like produce, and we would be partners to produce a new spirit made for export market, just for the US and Europe or whatever, outside of China. So here we are, we got a startup, we got funding. And so I was like, all right, I guess this is it. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna leave China and go back to New York and launch this company. And so a couple hiccups. I don't want to go into the drama. I'm actually like not supposed to
Sure,
talk.
but
Yeah.
somehow it just didn't.
Yeah, so we did. We left.
Okay. Yeah.
We left because of that. Because this was supposed to start. And then I don't think, my wife wasn't super happy about it. She wanted to stay. But so we left. We went back to New York. We ended up in Brooklyn, and then trying to launch this company, and it's going pretty well. And but then I won't go into the details, but there was like some dynamics and different things, and so so I had to leave the company.
Roger.
Yeah, for whatever reason. I'm legally not supposed to talk about
Sure,
like
no,
why.
that's fine. I'm not even going to go there. But it ended up taking you back to San Diego yet again at some point.
More or
right?
less, yeah, more or less. So so eventually, like I got out of that company, which is, I mean, I still have shares in it. It was a good mutual breakup, whatever. So I got out. I still talk to like one or two of those guys, and then so I got out, and then and then I've ended up. Had a quick job in the Bay Area, and then COVID happened, and then
Oh, so you
here I
did go
am.
back to the Bay Area.
I
That is
did
amazing,
again
right?
for a job.
Right?
Yeah,
San Diego to Bay, New
yeah.
York,
Reversed.
Beijing,
It's
New
kind of reverse
York,
migration. Yeah,
Bay,
yeah.
San Diego.
I know it's crazy. So yeah.
And
So
so COVID hit. It's interesting. You've had now, these two major generational marker events that no one could control. You had a 9/11 experience, which facilitated some change of your life, and then you had a COVID experience, which facilitated a change in your life. It's interesting coming from the Bay Area down to San Diego because of COVID. How did you go through COVID? Was the reason I ask is our COVID experience was, everybody's is unique, but ours was more or less quote unquote typical. We had our kids at the time were in school. So my oldest daughter was finishing her last year of college during COVID. My youngest daughter starting her freshman year in college, right? That's when it happened in that March of her freshman year. And so everybody was home, right? Everybody was home, right?
Yeah.
And so we just all managed home, and it was not easy for anybody, but we were all here, and it was kind of this normalish experience, as normal as COVID could be. What was your experience like? Clearly precipitated a move from San Francisco to San Diego.
Yeah. So I got laid off in April or something like that, whatever, after COVID hit. But then they kind of extended me because one of the managers went on maternity leave, so I kind of was covering for her. So they brought me back in. So, but everyone was working remotely. And we had it was actually looking back, it actually was a very pleasant time. I mean, despite given the circumstances, we had a family who had kids similar age that we knew from New York. So they were like our bubble, and so we'd see them all the time. And Bay Area was really, they have all these amazing parks in the East Bay. And so I remember I was just like drive and just go to a new park with my kids and just like walk around, hike and stuff. Because you could still do that. You could still go
Sure.
hiking. You wear a mask or whatever, but you're still like, you can go outside, which is great. So I was working a little bit and working remotely and then doing all that stuff. But then I knew that the job was going to end at some point. So I was just like, I was trying to apply for jobs and stuff like that as well in the Bay Area, but it was pretty tough during COVID. And then um, I was just like, okay, well, this is kind of stupid. We got to do something. And my parents are kind of getting older, and they had this house that they were renting out. I was like, well, why don't we just move there into that house, and then I could just we could just work from there. And then there's this really good Chinese bilingual school here in San Diego that's public. And so I was going to enroll my firstborn in a private school in the East Bay, and it was like pretty expensive. And I was like super glad. Like they were nice. They're like, okay, you lost your job. It's okay. We'll refund you your deposit and stuff. And so I was like, okay, well, this is cool. We can just move back. We have a
Sure.
house. I could eventually enroll my kids into this bilingual school and then figure it out, maybe get a new job or whatever. And so, yeah, that's kind of how we ended up back here.
Yeah. And then you're back at Pacific Beach where it all started.
Yeah. I know. I never would have thought this would happen, but yeah.
As you left San Diego, you said, "I'm out of here. I'm never going back." And the magnets of life, pull you back. It's interesting. There's this really interesting song by a band called Pink Martini. They're one of my favorite bands, and it's called "Dos Vidania Mio Bambino." Basically, farewell, my bumblebee. And it's a great song because it's a story about a woman and a man, and the man is going between Italy and Russia, and he can't quite make up his mind, right?
Yeah.
When he's in Florence or in Italy, he's thinking about Russia. When he's in Russia, he misses the sun of Italy, right? And so she says, here we are, in this veranda, looking over the Adriatic Sea, and you're still talking about the naked trees in Gorky Park, right? I mean, you're in these various places. And so, it's funny now that you've kind of literally come back home after these various experiments and wanderings. Have you told your kids about how you had all these different experiences and about how you pursued your interests with, I think, real passion and almost a fearlessness?
No, I'm not I mean, yeah, to a certain degree. I remember one of my kids was really upset when we moved. Had a lot of friends, in Brooklyn, so it was pretty hard. But I think, yeah, I think I do talk. We talk about it. We do talk about it, like how we used to live in Beijing and stuff, to our kids, and they're like, "Oh yeah, what was that like?" And my daughter was born in New York, and she's always like, "I want to go back. I want to see it." I was like, "Okay, we'll do that one of these days." Yeah. So,
because I'm wondering what kind of lessons they're learning from you, in terms of how to live a young adult life, right? If they think that, if they'll be as adventurous as you are, if they'll stay close to home, right? I'm just curious. My upbringing was one where my parents had a lot of marriages and divorces, and I had a lot of family come in, and I moved around in the city in Pittsburgh for a lot of different houses. And so that then reflected as a contrast in my adulthood, where I came out to San Diego. I met my wife when we were pretty young. We've been together now for a long, 30 plus years, been married 27 years. one house, one spouse. My kids have only lived in this one house their whole lives,
Yeah.
in their early 20s, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I needed was to create an adulthood of stability.
Yeah.
Right. I've only worked for 2 companies my entire career.
Right.
Right. And so that was my contrast.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious how the contrast of the next stage of your life, Simon, right? After all of
Mm-hmm.
these wanderings and coming back to San Diego, do you do you do you still think that there are more wanderings to go? Or do you feel like this is kind of like the place you're settling into?
Yeah, I don't know. We've been here for almost 4 or 5 years now. I don't have any desire to. I hate moving, even though we've moved so many times. So I don't have any desire to move. Plus, we're living in probably the largest type of living situation we've ever lived in. So we have
Because
so
you're
much
in Beijing
stuff.
and Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, we had like a 1.5 bedroom in Brooklyn. Now we have like this huge house. So like we have so much stuff. I can't even imagine what it'd be like to move again. But who knows? I mean, I don't have any plans to do that.
Mm-hmm.
My wife kind of hints at, trying to move to Germany at some point. So we visit Germany every summer,
Mm-hmm.
her family, and just stay there for like a month or so,
That's great.
which is great. But I don't know. I don't have any. I don't have any desire to move to another place right now.
Right. No, I think that's interesting. And one question that I have is, in listening to your life, I can't help but think about the experiences that maybe I didn't have, that I didn't pursue. Right. I didn't travel. I didn't try all these new things. Do you? And I don't think it's a good quality, but
Mm.
oftentimes I think men are comparative, right, in terms of what they are doing versus somebody else. Do you ever feel that way in terms of the experiences you've had, or are you really comfortable with what you did and didn't do?
Oh yeah, of course, all the time. I think about like you were just telling me when I first met you. You're telling me, oh, I have 2 kids, and they're like working out of college now. I'm like, wow, how old are you, Chris? Or
Right.
when did you have a kid? And so, and some of my friends also, they had kids earlier, and my kids are young. So I'm like in my 50s. So sometimes I think, oh, maybe I should have had kids earlier, and then now I could kind of enjoy, some whatever. But I don't know. It's yeah. I do think about that. Compare like, well, what if this or what if that?
I think that's
Um,
natural,
yeah, I think
Simon.
it's natural. Yeah.
I think it's natural that we do a what if, and what we hope is that you get to a place of reconciliation, that your story is your own, right, and your journey is your own, and and is, and maybe should be,
Hmm.
incomparable to others, right?
Right.
you know but I think about that too, and hope to get to a place where you know it is incomparable. Everybody's journey truly is incomparable because everyone is different. The different motivations and different wants and needs about what they want to pursue in life. Um,
Right. Right.
I think that for me, I look at you as someone who's had an extraordinarily successful adventures, a series of very fortunate and events, right, that kind
Yeah.
of propelled your life forward and brought you back home.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I often think about like, what if I stayed? What if I didn't leave, here? And then, oh yeah. So the time when I got my job in China, the second time I went to China, I remember like one of my contacts was reaching out to me, and they're like, and she's working at Facebook, and she's like, "Oh yeah, do you want to work? Yeah, like I got this job position. I could hook you up." I was like, "Yeah, that sounds pretty cool, but I'm gonna go to China." So again, who knows what would have happened? That was
Right.
pre-IPO, all that stuff.
Right. Google,
I don't
nah.
know.
Facebook,
I don't know.
nah. I'll
Whatever.
try some, but it doesn't, in the end, it's just yours. It's your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Well, Simon, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for chatting with me. What a great conversation. I really enjoyed it and appreciate your time. I guess I have one final question for you.
Mhm.
Who is someone that you know that I don't know that I should meet?
Hmm. Someone that I know that you don't know I should meet. What do you mean in terms of like?
Just an interesting person that you think I should know.
Oh, okay. Well, you did mention that you want to travel more. So, probably have two friends. One of my friends, this guy's like a total nomad. Like I can't even keep track of where he lives anymore.
That's awesome.
He actually worked at Facebook for a while and he did pretty well. But he like spends time he spends time in like South America and travels around. He lived in the Antarctic for a while at one
Wow.
of the bases.
Wow.
So he's got some great stories. So yeah, I think you should meet him. He's a cool guy.
Awesome. I've never met anyone who lived in Antarctica.
Yeah, yeah,
That's wonderful.
yeah.
All right. Well, Simon, thank you so much again. I really, really appreciate you. And I hope you have a marvelous evening.
Awesome. Great to be here. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for having
Bye.
me.
Well, all right, Simon Dang. Wow. What a incredible series of adventures and experiences. I love how his life seemed to have gone from San Diego, San Francisco, New York, Beijing, New York, San Francisco, San Diego. It's just I'm not going to call it a Ulysses, kind of Homeric Odyssey that brings him back home, but it's pretty interesting, right? It goes from each of those cities, and in each of those cities there are these these generational markers, right? He was in New York during 9/11. He was in Beijing before a heavier crackdown from the government when it was a little bit free and loose at a pocket of time, right? And of course in San Francisco during COVID. And it's one of these things where he experienced those generational changes as he was going through his own change himself, and his own family's change too. So what did I learn from Simon? I learned that it is okay to make these wild changes in life and go from place to place, not exactly sure what's going to happen, but trusting in yourself enough and kind of letting it flow out so that you can experience what's there in the moment and then move on to a new experience. I've been in the same home for 20 plus years while he has literally traveled the world with his family. I think it's a marvelous experience. I'm so glad he shared it. I hope you enjoyed listening to the conversation. I hope you enjoy this podcast. And I'd love to have a conversation with you. You can book a conversation at menfolkjourneys.com. Forms are there. Get you started as a conversation starter, and you can book it with me, and I'll make the conversation memorable and enjoyable. And I'd love to hear from you and have a yik yak about your stories so we can all learn from what you learned yourself. Thank you so much for listening. Word bit Falarid.